Gavin, St. Patrick's Cathedral, we have some good news. The roof is finally renovated.
That's true, Owen. Yeah, we've got there. We started planning for this in 2015. We started trying to get our finances in place about that time. And finally, it's completed, it's done, and it's looking fantastic. Roof, as you say, but also a lot of associated high-level masonry repairs, new electrical systems, new fire protection systems, both passive and active, and indeed lightning conductor, all these things all done. So we're thrilled, along, by the way, might I say, with 35 or 36 huge clerestory windows, all taken away and restored as well. So it was, for us, a vast undertaking, and now I'm delighted to say finished.
Yeah, a mammoth job, as you say, and critically important as well, because literally it was the roof of a 1,000-year-old cathedral. So, you know, nothing could be more important than, you know, keeping the structure safe and solid.
No, I mean, it was actually dangerous. It was an existential threat for us, to be honest, and we faced closure because of it. So to have dealt with it successfully is a great leap forward. And also, you know, there's another win to it as well, because they're all traditional skills that are required to do that. By and large, they're all Irish craftspeople. There's a huge reservoir of talent there, and to be able to support that too is a tremendous thing as well, you know, for the nation. So in terms of cost, you know, it was about 9.4 million. The biggest single cost was the scaffolding. Scaffolding was very complicated, very tight, difficult site, braced off windowsills, those windows I mentioned, taken away and repaired, allowing us to do that. And of course, a temporary roof over all the works too. So Ains Scaffold, the scaffolder there, Clancy, the main contractor, but Layer was the system, a brand new system from Germany. First time it was used here in this country, but used very successfully.
And was there an irony insofar as with COVID, obviously visitor numbers were vastly reduced, and so did that give you more kind of scope to carry out the work at a quicker pace than otherwise would have been the case?
Well, you know, you do try and pluck silver linings from COVID, but I'm still struggling to do that, to be honest, because we had organised the contract so that we'd be able to trade through. We'd spent a very considerable sum of money in terms of our messaging on-site, off-site to allow us to continue to trade and to welcome visitors. So COVID, yes, okay, there may have been some wins there, but the big loss, of course, was visitor income. We had, just for your own interest, you know, and viewers, we had got about 6 million of a war chest together to deal with the roof. We knew the quantum in terms of costs, what it was likely to be. Of that 6 million, 2.5 million came from new sources, very generous people, and indeed the state ultimately gave us about 1.25 million, which was very, very welcome. But the rest we hoped to largely generate through trading through the project. So when COVID came along, it was unbelievably challenging because we were shut indefinitely as far as we knew. There were no visitors. There was half the roof off. We still had at that stage something like about 5 million plus to pay, which would have wiped out all our endowments. So it was a very, very difficult time, to say the least of it. But we managed to plot our way through. We restructured financially, restructured organizationally on the hoof, whilst, as I say, there was about 1.5 millimeters of plastic between us and the weather, with all the slates gone. And we also were able to then begin construction again and get it done with a delay of something like only 9 weeks, 7 weeks of which was due to COVID, and 2 weeks then to changing work practices because of COVID.
As you say, it was existential to a certain extent, because I remember a few years back there was a very bad storm swept through Dublin, and the roof came under significant pressure. So if that had happened again and the works hadn't been completed, in theory the roof could have caved in, or part of the roof could have caved in, and all the priceless artifacts and the place of worship that is St. Patrick's Cathedral would have been at risk.
Yes, it was a real risk, and you know, the cathedral is the National Cathedral for the Church of Ireland, but it's part of our shared heritage here. As you say, the building over there that I'm looking at through the window, work began on that in 1220. In terms of the roof, the oldest in situ roof timbers of any building in Ireland are up there. You know, the oak timbers up on that roof were acorns 1,000 years ago. It's an extraordinary structure, and it was at real risk. But the greatest risk was not doing it, not undertaking it, and happily we've managed to deal with that. Right in the middle of it, really, of course, you know, our in a way, I suppose, sister building in Paris, Notre Dame Cathedral, was engulfed by flames. So we were extremely conscious of that too, all the way through the project. And that was something we had to go to great lengths to mitigate the risk of that too.
Yeah. You're an iconic, if you like, tourism experience within Dublin, as well as being obviously the National Cathedral for the Church of Ireland. Your numbers, your visitor numbers, I think were over 500,000 pre-COVID. That's fallen away, like all visitor experiences and attractions have suffered during COVID. How quickly do you think you can get back up to that sort of level? Because obviously that is critical in terms of repaying some of the debt that must be there because of the roof job.
Yeah, I mean, we are a charity. Our finances are a public record. We now owe for the roof 3.4 million plus another 600,000 in debt taken on, so 4 million euro. We are a charity. We are not geared towards generating surpluses, and we are geared towards funding our charitable aims, which are in the community, education, choral worship, and conservation of our properties here. So you're quite right. I mean, we about 600,000 plus visitors, paying visitors in 2019. We welcome another 65,000 to events and so forth in the cathedral on an annual basis. That was guillotined, shut off, gone. Now, thank goodness, we've come back. We're coming back. We're at about 25, 26% of 2019 figures in terms of paying visitors. Not events. Events are very strong for us at the moment. But we need, to be sustainable, we need about double that. And that's sustainable in just covering your operational costs, not dealing with the costs of conserving, massive pieces of built heritage like the cathedral. So we do rely on that income. And without an income stream of that magnitude, the building and all that it does can't be run. So that's what we're facing. In terms of, do I see it coming back? I was always a believer, really, that once vaccines were entering the fray, that the new normal was going to be rather like the old normal. It was a question of when. We are seeing, our key markets rebound. Over the staycation period, once we were allowed open, there was nothing doing here in Dublin for us, for built heritage like us. I mean, virtually nothing. And we weren't alone there. And we're not alone in Dublin. I've just come back from London. On Thursday, 4:00, I went into Westminster Abbey. Anybody who's listening and knows Westminster Abbey will know how busy it is. There were 2 visitors in it, apart from me. Unbelievable. So that's just a type of property or building or attraction we are, for good or ill. So it's international visitors.
It's not necessarily a Dublin phenomenon. It's nearly a capital city phenomenon. The staycation market goes elsewhere. So you desperately need the international tourist. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gavan, but I think your big international market are Americans, aren't they? North American.
Yeah, it's North American, then it's EU. I mean, we're running about 20% plus North Americans since we really opened in early August for international visitors. We hope with the news that will increase and climb. They are, the big spenders. They are the people who tend to visit places like ours the most. We're very much looking forward to hopefully increasing that percentage as we go through this year and on into next year.
Yeah, and thankfully, after a long time, there seems to be a bit more clarity on transatlantic flights. So fingers crossed, as you say, there'll be a bit of a bounce in that market next year. Talk to me, Gavan, if you don't mind, about sustainability and St. Patrick's Cathedral's view of sustainability and sort of the pressure, if you like, the globe is under, but also what we can do as individual entities, but also as a society here in Ireland to, if you like, enhance and improve our sustainability measures.
But there's a number of ways of looking at this problem, and they all tend to coalesce. So whether it's from ultimately, a business perspective, or whether it's a moral or ethical question, they tend to come together, whereas we've got to start reducing our impact. If I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was a betting man, I'd say that COVID is likely to be a blip, a horrendous blip. I think the long run drag on our sector is going to be the question of sustainability, particularly around carbon. There's just no way of getting around that. If you look at the EU targets, what they are hoping to achieve by the end of this decade, like in about 8 years, everything is going to come under the microscope. International travel will definitely be one of those things. The Irish market globally is a small market for the many airlines. 90% of our visitors come from overseas, 90% of those come by plane. It's as simple as that. And we've got to be aware of that as a sector. So we're concerned about it too, from the moral and ethical question. As a church, we've identified this, and has been for some time, as one of the biggest challenges, that is affecting us across the planet. So we've got to do our part. There's no easy answer to this. We need the business, we need international travel in quantity, but we need to understand the damage that does, and we need to own that as a key driver for international tourism here in Dublin. We need to understand what portion goes to us and how we deal with that. We're getting a lot of support about this. We've signed up to Sustainability Travel Ireland here. We're moving in that direction. We're in discussions with organisations like Bord na Móna to look at developing an accredited carbon offset scheme here in Ireland that will improve the product that visitors come to see in terms of our landscape, our biodiversity, all of these things, and that will then, we can engage our visitors in terms of carbon offset scheme. We can pay into it ourselves. We can look at this to try as a medium-term measure and mitigate some of the effects that we're having as an industry. I, again, think ultimately this is going to be very, very important for us. We are going to go back to business as usual in the very short term, but the medium, longer term, these will be questions we're all going to have to try and struggle with and answer. And there aren't any easy questions. The more I look into it, the more complicated it gets, but it shouldn't stop us trying. So that's all I can really say about that at the moment, except that we are tackling it, trying to tackle it, and trying to think about it,
And the cathedral sort of policy or approach to this, do you foresee, something being put in place from next year onwards? I mean, there's an urgency about this, isn't there? We can't sort of debate it and deliberate on the issue for too long, because it's a clear and present danger. It's existential, just like the roof was.
Yeah. Look, it's not in the gift of the West to deal with global warming. It's the developing world. And there are ethical queries and questions there. I mean, why should we say to them, you can't do what we've done, in terms of the use and development of fossil fuels? But we do have to lead. We do have to make use of new technologies. And you're right. I mean, the clock is ticking. Everybody acknowledges that. So yes, I think we're probably about a year to 18 months to having an Irish accredited carbon offset scheme here. I think the reason we talked to Bord na Móna is because they've got the scale. If the sector decides to get on board, they have the estate that it can be grown over should the funding become available, and should we wish to do that. So that's why we're talking to them. But there are other, no doubt, organisations out there that could be part of it. I think there's a circularity to having such a scheme here in Ireland. One of the things we're looking at with Bord na Móna actually is along the Wild Atlantic Way. So immediately, we're improving what it is the visitors coming to enjoy here. And again, looking to drive visitors from places like the cathedral, from the city centre, out towards the peripherals as well for economic purposes there. Yeah. So I hope that there's a win-win for all parties involved in such a scheme, which is just part of what we're hoping to try and achieve.
Yeah, great. No, it's here. In terms of the cathedral, are there any other sort of new product or new developments or new initiatives that would benefit the visitor experience? It's so wonderful, it's so iconic, it's so rich in terms of heritage and culture and history. How can you interpret that to its maximum for the benefit of the paying visitor?
Well, look, actually, that's a very good question. Visitors enjoy people talking to them, right? That's the number one thing they like. And as we were told most recently at a seminar I was at, that the great majority of 5-star TripAdvisor reviews mention a person's name in them of an attraction, But we can't talk to everybody with the type of numbers we've got. We've been 100% actually financially supported by Fáilte Ireland to deliver a very good audio guide here across the major European languages, Oscuelga as well, might I add, and also Mandarin. And the reason I mention that is because we are addicted to understanding and to surveying our visitors, our customers. And we know that we score below value for money benchmarks with people for whom English is not their first language. 51% of our visitors fall into that category. So to have an audio guide in their language is a huge win for us. So I think those are the sort of things that the decisions that you can roll out and make based on the sort of research that we're undertaking as well. So that's how we intend to do it. Ultimately, we are constrained by capacity here. That's why we have 600,000 people, not 1 million. And ultimately, we would like to be able to deliver some sort of experience in conjunction with, beside part of the cathedral, that would give us bigger capacity, give us another draw, and bring us up that tier to the 1 million plus, should the market be there to pitch it to in years to come.
Right. In terms of, you mentioned the importance of meeting people and so on, and that kind of obviously makes one think about the people who work in the tourism industry and how they interact with both the international visitor and the domestic visitor. Any thoughts on that? Because we all know the Irish welcome and the sort of genuine, authentic experience that visitors get often comes from people that work in the industry, and we're challenged a little bit at the moment, aren't we?
I think we are, Owen. I think it's a peculiar place we find ourselves, because this sector is in a horrendous recession, the likes of which we haven't seen, but the country isn't. And confidence in the sector as an employer, from an employee's perspective, has been shaken. So I think, we ourselves had to make some very, very difficult decisions based on the information that was in front of us, at the end of last summer. And we had to, unfortunately, make some people redundant and lay others off. Now, those people have found employment, some within the sector, many outside the sector. They're very skilled, transferable skills, and they're gone. So I think we need to think about this. Pay, terms and conditions, they need to be thought about as well. But ultimately, we are having a difficulty now actually attracting talent back in, because, as you say, people are utterly central to the way that we do our business and engage with our customers as well. So it is a challenge. And as an aside as well, for an organization like ours, where everybody's got to be Garda vetted to work here, there's a backlog of, I think, 6 to 7 weeks with Garda vetting at the moment, which again, operationally makes things very challenging.
Listen, Gavin, I'm so pleased that the roof issue is behind you, and you can sort of plan ahead with more confidence and certainty. And let's hope you get back towards those 600,000 visitors and maybe more in a sustainable manner in the relatively near future.
Thanks, so lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.